I submitted that story to critique. Oh my God, come on. This is what you do. Hello dears, Natalie Locke here with episode 40 of Write the Story, where I give you a prompt and 10 words out of this book to include in the story you write for that prompt. So far, I've made it this far. But this episode, I plan to be a little different. Normally, how I do this is I outline for 5 to 10 minutes and then I take 20 minutes to write that story. I did do that this time. But as well as doing all of that, I also submitted this story to Critique Group Live, which airs every second Thursday of each month. If you missed this last one, I got the link here. If you get to about the hour and 48 minutes and 46 seconds mark, you will hear my story being read, and then all the subsequent feedback that I got. Between chat and the critiquers live on air, I was able to get a lot of good feedback, and it made me realize what I wanted to come across wasn't coming across as strong as I wanted it to. I'm going to take that feedback, rewrite the story, and then you will hear the final version based off that critique. Now, before I give you the prompt in 10 words, if this is your first time writing flash fiction, I highly recommend you set no time limit whatsoever. I do it because otherwise I might never get it done. All right, let me go ahead and give you the prompt, and then after the prompt, I will give you my outline and the feedback I got from Critique Group Live. The prompt is, behind the scenes at the theater. The words to include are loneliness, applaud, beg, jogging, memorize, admit, solitude, converse, eternity, and marsh. The first thing that I put down in my outline was taking the word applaud. I was thinking the audience is going to applaud when the curtain opens. By the way, that changed. Because normally when a curtain opens, that's when the audience gets hushed and the show starts. I was thinking of a light jogging from stage left to stage right because maybe one of the characters thought they had it entered on one side, but then they realized they needed to enter on the other. I ended up not including that. I don't think. I'm trying to think what I ended up doing. I ended up changing it. I know that much. For memorize, I wanted one of the characters to mouth the lines of other people's lines, showing that they memorized the script. Actually, upon the reread, I kind of realized that's more telling than showing. I did imagine that I was going to have 3 women, one playing the younger character, Caroline is what I named her, the second being the middle-aged character because it's a travel through time, and then the last one being like the grandmother of the character. So it's all one character in different periods of her life that these women are playing. But it's behind the scenes where they understood each other a little bit better. For begging, I was thinking one of the characters was going to be on their knees, palms together, actually begging the other character to do something, and I'm not going to reveal what that was because I kind of like how I presented the information for what was actually going on. I was thinking to have actual lines overheard from the play that would include the word loneliness, solitude, converse, marsh, and admit. But I ended up changing a lot of those words because the only 2 words that ended up being an overheard line from the play was admit and loneliness. And I need to change that, honestly. Out of 10 words, 4 stayed the same, how I laid it out in my outline. Then I wrote the story and I changed a lot of things, but I kept the theme that I was going for there. So now what I'm going to share with you is instead of reading my original story like I normally do, you can go to CGL at the 1 hour, 48 minute, and 46 second mark to hear my original story. What I will share with you is the feedback that I got from CGL, and then I will read you my story. So the advice I got in pretty much the order that it was given, but I kind of lumped a few together. The main advice I got was I need more ambiance, invoke more of the senses. Like, what are the actors saying on stage? Yes, we know it has to be silent backstage, but there is things being done backstage that you can hear. Maybe someone accidentally knocks over a broom. Now, this is me throwing in a few of my own points, but I understood what the critiquers were conveying on when they said I needed more ambiance, I needed something else happening to build the tension. Because right now, the story read more like a table read for a screenplay. And I needed to create more of a narrative story because that's my goal. One line that I thought was really good that was said by the critiquers was something private happening in a public place. And that's exactly what's happening backstage, is that it's kind of a private conversation, but they're having to handle it and the show must go on. Ooh, I wonder if I should use that. That is a cliche, but maybe I could switch it up a bit. Remember, the first advice was talking about ambiance and evoke the senses. The second one said the silence hit hard. Like, they felt very silent, like they couldn't hear anything. And I think I should have had more going on, because there is stuff going on, but I also didn't want it to be too busy. So we'll see how that plays out. It was suggested for me to check out a genre. The specific movie named was Center Stage, which is a great film, and I did enjoy it. The other movie that this made me think of, and I was actually trying to channel a little bit better because it's in Act 2, all the scenes happen behind the scenes. And it's kind of a similar situation. But the movie is called Noises Off, and it has Michael Caine, Christopher Reeve, Carol Burnett, John Ritter, and a whole bunch of other names. And it's a hilarious movie if you ever get the chance to see it. And I've heard, but I never have seen it, that the behind the scenes of everybody moving in time with each other and everybody's doing something, seeing it live is hilarious and perfect. And there is a little bit of takeaway when you watch it, because of course camera cuts scenes from a different angle, and it doesn't convey the same shock and awe, because it probably took many takes for them to pull it off. But at the same time, I still think it's good from somebody who did not see the final play. Not that this video should turn into a review of Noises Off, but it's something that has stuck with me over the years. So other things that were said was it felt like a screenplay, it felt like a table read. One advice was given was play into the character traits, because I had 3 characters that I introduced at the same time, all playing the same character. And I tried to limit it to 3 because I don't feel that the story could work with just 2 people. But what could happen is play into the characters they're making. So the character that's playing the grandma, maybe she has a short curly hair gray wig that she tinkers with and tries to fix right before she goes on stage, or they're different outfits they're wearing, something like that. Maybe the younger character has headphones and a Walkman with her or something to convey that. Things that I could do to incorporate to help break up the nonverbals that I had continuously through the story. Also, to build tension, to have the desire of helping their friend, of being there for them. And I think I could have done that more, and I have an idea of how to do that. And the last piece of advice or critique that I got was that many of my sentences started the same way, which I do agree with. I started with whichever character I was trying to grab from, because I had 3 to choose from, of what was going on. And I need to break it up a little bit more. We started this story with 467 words. I'm going to apply all the advice that I learned from CGL in the chat and live on screen, put it into my story, and then you're gonna hear it. So here is my version with critique group live feedback of episode 40. Rita, Megan, and Etta were backstage, ready to play the same person in this time travel stage drama. They held hands in a circle with their heads bowed, a pre-show ritual. Rita and Etta held on to Megan's hands a little longer today. Rita played young Caroline, Megan played middle-aged Caroline, and Etta played Grandma Caroline. The drama backstage is what had Rita and Etta on edge. They had to protect Megan from herself. Megan's marriage fell apart publicly in the tabloids these last few weeks. Rita and Etta wanted to be sure that opening night lifted instead of pressed pulse on the blender. Etta left the circle, double-checking her short gray wig to walk out on stage and start the show. The curtain pulled back, sending the audience into a hush. Etta's words echoed through the venue and even into backstage. I have lived a wonderful life, but if I could go back and talk to my younger selves, I would tell them, Behind the curtain, Rita was on her knees, palms touching, silently begging Megan for something. Megan held up a Girl Scout three-finger salute as a promise. Rita nodded and mouthed, "Thank you," as Megan helped her up. Rita grabbed the Walkman prop off the shelf before squaring herself off stage. She straightened the headphones around her neck and then heard her cue. As Rita entered stage left, her oldest counterpart exited stage right. Rita began on stage. "I was only 16 when I met him." Etta glanced at Megan, tilting her hand up to her mouth as if she was holding an invisible glass. Megan shook her head and held up the same three-finger promise for Etta as she did for the youngest Caroline, Rita. She straightened her business suit as Etta grabbed one of the sticky rollers from the prop shelf and slowly, to avoid sound, removed the lint from Megan's jacket. With Megan's costume impeccable once again, Etta nodded and sat down in a chair next to the cubbies that the cast and crew used to store their stuff. On stage left, Megan stood, waiting for Rita's parting line. Etta gave an encouraging smile and a thumbs up when Megan glanced at her. Rita exited the opposite side of the stage. The audience's applause at Megan's entrance resonated. Etta looked down and spotted a bottle peeking out of Megan's large bag. When she looked up, Rita's eyes locked with hers. Rita's brow furrowed. Etta sighed and pulled the half-empty bottle from Megan's purse. Both of their shoulders sank. Etta passed the bottle to Rita and prepared herself to go on stage. "I vowed to myself I'd never let someone, let alone my own husband, treat me that way again." Megan said her exit line with more conviction than she had in dress rehearsals. Rita had just enough time to stash the bottle behind the radiator before Megan joined her backstage as Etta took over center stage. Rita lightly jogged over to Megan and embraced her in a hug. Megan froze. After a few seconds, she reciprocated the gesture. Rita pulled away and pointed to Megan, shook her head while mouthing the word, "alone." Megan pursed her lips and nodded, keeping her eyes on the floor. Rita lifted Megan's chin and gestured to Megan again, but afterwards she flexed her biceps. Megan laughed but quickly covered her mouth. The short converse lifted Megan's spirits instead of sending her to spirits. Young and middle-aged Carolines stepped to stage right, waiting for their cue. After what seemed to be an eternity, they heard older Caroline say their entrance line. "That was the day I was able to face myself and keep all that from happening," Etta said, while she reached out to her younger co-stars to come on stage. Well, if you heard the story on CGL and then heard it now, I hope you heard an improvement. The story I sent to CGL had 467 words. The story I just read had 633, but I feel that new and improved flash fiction was so much better. I feel it had more power, and I would love anybody who watches the CGL version and this version to tell me what you think, because I think I headed in the right direction with this. There might be some things to work on, which brings me to my least favorite line. I actually didn't think this was my least favorite line until I read it out loud, and trust me, I stumbled through a lot of these reading out loud. I don't know what's wrong with me today. But the line that I just didn't like the moment I read out loud, I understand what I'm trying to get across here, but I feel written down, something wasn't right about it. I don't know exactly what. I'm sure I could pick it apart after I get some distance between myself and this story. But initially the line, "The short converse lifted Megan's spirits instead of sending her to spirits." I know what I was going with. I was trying to be clever and cute. I just don't think it didn't work. Not quite at all. Now, regarding the feedback I got, I feel like what was said on stage was almost like a reflection of Megan's current story that she was in. And it kind of corresponded with each other. And I really liked that I went that route. And I think that helped make this be a more narrative flash fiction than feeling like an excerpt out of a screenplay. I feel that there still was good silent moments that hit hard, and I did include for the characters to make it more clear who Rita, Megan, and Etta were. I included lines about their characters, like Megan was wearing a suit, Rita had a Walkman, Etta had the wig, and I'm glad that I was able to incorporate those, and I think I did a lot better. I took the feedback and I applied it to the story, and guess what? It made it better, in my opinion. I may still have more work to do in this story, but I think we definitely improved greatly. Something that I'm curious about if it's still working is since I had more dialogue this go around, but it was dialogue that's in the play that's being said out loud. I wonder if it's clear who is speaking each time. If not, I need to work on that. Now for my favorite line. This was actually difficult for me to find. My favorite line was, "That was the day I was able to face myself and keep all that from happening." And I kind of envision that as like the break into Act 2 of the play that Rita, Megan, and Etta are in. But I like that line because I feel like it's kind of and here's how it's going to change line. Like, you got all this backstory of issues and stuff, and even though the reader didn't get it, the audience, kind of another character in the story, the audience got this story of here's what happened for Caroline, the character, which is a character in a character. Here's what happened for Caroline, and now here's how I can change all of it. So I almost want to write the screenplay for this. I really enjoyed this story. I enjoyed the feedback. I admit there was times that it didn't feel nice, but it was from a place of let's make this better, not a place on me. So they kind of were telling me stuff I already knew. And I just want to say, just because you hear just negative doesn't mean the whole thing's negative. There is parts that are good in there. The story and the bond that these three women shared is enough. I hope if you are ever faced with feedback, you're able to look for the good in the feedback and what place that feedback is coming from as well. Plus, also, let's face it, I submitted this to get feedback. It wasn't unsolicited, so I think it gets a little more honest from there. I very much enjoyed this story. I enjoyed editing this story, and I hope you find enjoyment with this writing prompt, maybe editing your own stories. And I hope you continue to find enjoyment in your day, your week, your month. Yes, dear. You want to try? Okay. I hope you continue to find enjoyment every single day, each week, each month, and each year.
No, I tried.
Well, come here and... Come on. You want to turn it? Mm-hmm. All right, so it's the button in the back. Right here. Press it. No, this button right here. This button. There you go.